Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Stage Diving with Scotty. Today my guests are Emblems. Welcome to my show, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for having
us.
I usually do this too at the very beginning. Your style is very unique, in my opinion. It's just like if you're going from the beginning, so your first album EP was Our Bare Bones, right? So a little more acoustic kind of vibe, and then you kind of sort of progress to a little more, almost like if the Fray went emo with a violinist, in my opinion. That's
you
kind of
nailed
like
it.
the flavor I was getting.
Yes, that's that's exactly. We woke up that morning and said we want an emo Fray. That was exactly what we said going into the studio. So thank you for noticing that. I think you might be the first there.
I had a really long night, and we're like, "That's it."
Well, thanks, guys. See you later.
You nailed
it. Sometimes I have horrible, like what things remind me of. But yeah, it's just a little different than not quite emo and not quite like, I don't know, like soft rock. Not soft rock. Oh, that sounds horrible. I don't know, like not like Dashboard Confessional or anything. But it's
kind of funny that like this exact same issue you're having right now, we have at least
internally all this time. Yeah.
When we're trying to figure out how do we update things like our Facebook page or the website or Bandcamp, or even describe ourselves to promoters when we're trying to get shows, there's a constant conversation. So what do we sound like? And honestly, I'm gonna start throwing emo the Fray on there. That might be the most spot on that we have as far as hide and seek's concerned, because
I don't think that's relevant now with this new record at all. But
we'll say the emo the Fray found its balls. That'll be what this newest one is.
I like that.
No, I wrote that record in 2011, Our Bare Bones, with a different cast, I'll say, and I was very influenced by like folk music at that time, and I mean I still am, but recorded that record not really knowing like what I actually wanted this band to be or anything. And then was like years passed, tried a few other EPs, didn't really work out or like was worth like putting up into the world at all. Then in 2015, I had been up until then I had been playing with a few other people, and that had dissolved essentially. And I put out an ad on Craigslist, was playing email tag with Ian, who is now Ian, our drummer. The ad had expired in Craigslist, and I was just like, how am I gonna get a hold of this person? I don't even know what to do. And he answered the expired ad with like a new email. It was just like, hey, I saw this you had posted this, like I'm really interested. Right.
I think I put up a new ad because his post had expired, and all of his musical influences, everything he was describing sounded exactly what I wanted. Mm-hmm. And I went to go respond to that ad, and the post had expired, so I couldn't respond to it. So I had actually put up an ad on Craigslist saying, if you're this person out there, please contact me. And he
it's like a misconnections thing.
It's like, he put the misconnections in the
he
wrong
happened
section.
to see it. He responded to me, and I mean, it's like fate.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you, what on your ad? What was it? Were you giving some suggestions of the bands that you were influenced by? What were
at the time and still to this day, like big influences Typhoon. They're like a 12 piece orchestral, like kind of pop indie band from Portland.
Interesting.
They have like two dual drummers, like everything's like synchronized. It's really awesome.
Wow.
Them, like Death Cab for Cutie. Do you remember what else was on there?
Not entirely sure, but I remember Death Cab and I remember Typhoon. Those were the two that stood out to me, and I was like, all right, this is kind of where I want to go.
Typhoon, I'll definitely check that out. That sounds
for sure. So we started practicing at a practice space, like an hourly practice space in Chicago called Mystery Street Studios. And they're like they're a recording studio, but they offer rehearsal rooms by the hour. And so we started rehearsing there, and we had like a few people come and go. And before that, like I had been playing with a violinist. And so she was also there. And then just Ian and I like hit it off like right away. It felt like it was just like meant to. I don't know. I just say meant to be, but like
You
it,
could say
it
meant
felt
to
like
be.
a
That's
really,
okay.
You could
felt
say
like,
it, Matthew. You could say it.
it felt really good. And
As far as like
then
the connection, as far as like personality and playing together, or was
well,
it one or
I
the
Yeah.
other?
I'm gonna backtrack and say maybe not personality because like I'm just super awkward with new people, and so I think like that might have been a thing. But yeah, I mean like musically it was just like awesome right away, and like yeah, it was awesome.
Well, and I think that we had practiced together 2 or 3 times, maybe 3 or 4 times, and then we hung out for like a month or
Hmm.
two where we didn't even really practice that often. We were just hanging out, and we really built that kind of bond between us, just like our personalities.
Yeah.
And then we went back to kind of practicing, getting back into the music, and we found AJ and kind of put it all together. But there was a time there where we were also doing just a lot of bonding, kind of like and hanging out, not necessarily just focusing on music.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we were
you guys
going to
really built a
shows and
relationship.
stuff. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
absolutely. Yeah,
remember. Oh, go
that's
ahead.
even a better way to get to know someone is going to a show like
Mhm.
that. That's a very intimate thing. I
I
mean,
remember we saw the Life and Times at the B Kitchen,
Yeah, yeah, that was awesome.
um, which is Ellen Epley from Shiner's side band.
oh, okay,
It's
okay.
really awesome. And then we met AJ in 2016. I believe it was the day after his birthday, and he might have been hungover. I'm not sure.
Oh, without a doubt, without a doubt. It's incredibly fortunate I woke up on time to even get there, and I'm pretty sure we said we'd meet at like 7 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Um, it. Yeah, I think you're actually right. I think it was like the day after my birthday.
And
I
Well,
then
and
remember being
I
really
think
like,
that. Oh, sorry. I was going to say AJ was one of the very first bass players that we tried out for the band, and he walked in and he was amazing. You could tell, his technical ability, his comfort behind the bass, just right away blew us away. And it was one of those getting struck by lightning moments where the first person to walk through the door, and this guy was just he was part of the group
Yeah.
pretty instantaneously.
he had really done his homework, like I sent him a few demos. There was one particular song that Ian and I wrote together. Like the first song Ian and I wrote together is a song called Decor. It's off our last record, Hide and Seek. And Ian and I wrote that, and AJ learned that song and then also sent over a Muse cover. I can't remember the Muse song, but AJ might. And we were just like, oh my God, this is awesome.
hysteria.
Yeah.
Oh,
That
you know,
video popped up
super easy
on my
to play.
memories the other day.
I'm
Well,
used to
you gotta swing big, right? I'm like, I don't know, these guys, the recording they had out there was it sounded great. The sample that I had gotten, I was listening my now wife, but with my girlfriend at the time, and we were kind of just playing the track over and over. And I loved how it sounded, and I said, this is something I really want to be a part of. So I have to send something that cuts through. So I had her hold my phone and record me try to do Hysteria. I say try to because even my final take still doesn't really match Chris's intensity, but it was, yeah, I kind of probably did like 10 takes of that until she said, that's fine, I'm going to bed. If you don't get in, that's whatever. So that's, but yeah, no, that was, yeah, I remember the first time we had met up and started playing, and it was, yeah, exactly how you say it, Ian. It kind of just synced, the stuff that we came up with that day in Decor. I think a lot of it still carries through to, or even our modern rendition of it that we were just doing at practice earlier today. That in Ian's eyes. I mean, once you see his eyes, it's kind of hard not to just fall in love with the guys. So, at that point, I kind of figured it was up to them whether I was going to join, because I was definitely hooked.
I mean, up until that time, I'd always been playing with bassists that were essentially guitarists playing bass in punk bands and stuff. And I'm like, I didn't know what like a bassist could be until like I personally met AJ, and I was like, okay, like, this is gonna change.
Yeah.
This is gonna change everything. It's gonna, and then Ian is such a fantastic drummer as well, and the two of them sync so well together and play off each other. Are just like the rhythm section is just like they make me better. So
Now that's now that's something that not a lot of bands get. Yeah, so it's kind of like the lightning strike thing that you were talking about, Ian. Because when you have great musicians individually, it's always, it's very cool. Like, I know some people who can jam and go crazy, but to have the connection is so much
Mhm.
more important. Well, even you saying that you're doing a different, almost like a different rendition of the song, of your older stuff. Was it Decor, you said?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So even that, you can still build upon that from where your vibe was before, but where your vibe is now. I can't believe I just said vibe, but I hate that word. But like the feel of before and the feel and what you're kind of doing now, incorporating a little more, I guess, edge to what you guys are doing, I guess, or a little more rock, because your stuff's your most recent ones, what Virgo and Animals, definitely have a little more rock feel to it than obviously before. So, what now? Let me ask you that. I mean, it's hard. I want to jump a little bit, but now let's just go forward. I'll jump back later. I want
Mhm.
to ask you in regards to that, from where the more acoustic stuff earlier on to now, what kind of brought that change for you, Matthew? Was it just different influences, or was it just kind of how you were writing?
Yeah, it was definitely how I was writing. I think it definitely took a turn in 2018. I wrote this song called Ghost, and I had a violinist or some kind of string player throughout the whole like tenure up until that point,
Mhm.
and I just didn't see where the strings would fit with this particular song, and it just felt like this song was going to change the trajectory of the band going forward. So um yeah, we just kind of parted ways with that player, and we brought on a guitarist, and we've had a few guitarists since then, but yeah, it just kind of changed everything. And we haven't played it in a long that particular song in a long time, but we want to bring it back. But that's kind of like changed everything going, you know, up until now.
You were saying you were recording a new album. So how far is that into it right now?
So we actually finished recording. It's coming out this Friday. We have the album is called Everything is Strange, and it's coming out on. We have tapes available on Outcast Tape Infirmary out of Madison, Wisconsin,
Oh, there you go.
and then we're also part of Sell the Heart Records. They're both doing digital releases as well. Um, and then Sell the Heart Records also has like a limited T-shirt that they're doing, which is available on their big cartel site as well. This stuff kind of like came about in just like the past couple of months, because I reached out to probably like 20 or so labels, and I'm just like, I think like our last record was good. Like I still I am proud of that album, and I think the other guys are as well. But this record to me, like, just kind of blows everything else I've done out of the water. Like I feel like everything is just more thought out on this record, and we spent a lot more time just kind of tweaking things. And then it really helped that our producer engineer is a good friend of mine, and he was just like, I really want to do the record, so we ended up like going with him, and he's now in our band. He's not here right now, but his name's Kyle Alstrom. Um, and he ended up joining the band. We had another guitarist named Jared Cummins play on the record. He was in the band, and he was moving to Denver, and he was just like, I'm moving. What do you guys want to do? And we're like, let's record the record anyways. We really wanted to do it with him, and we're really glad it did. Like, it sounds awesome. And
Yeah.
Kyle just kind of took everything over and is expanding on what Jared did. And
Yeah, just kind of to hit back on that. You had asked earlier, what were some of the influences to kind of take this album in a different direction, maybe a little more of a rock direction than some of the previous stuff that we've done. And I think a lot of that was the dichotomy between Matt and Jared. So Jared came onto the band right before the pandemic, and kind of just hit the ground running from the first practice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Similar to what you said, Ian, like he came in, he had done his homework, he was ready to go on everything off of hide and seek, and not only to play on top of it, but had written his own parts.
Nice.
You know,
I was
to
going to say he was the first, one of the first guitar players we tried out. Kind of like did a cold tryout with him, and just worked out amazingly. Like
we
it was,
legit could have played a show that first rehearsal,
Yeah.
and like
it was kind of blown
would have
away.
been like,
Yeah.
okay.
That's awesome.
And his influence, I think, it had a lot to do with. I would say the majority of those songs, Matt, and correct me if I'm wrong, were written to give you a little background, so we had Jared caught up on the songs from hide and seek, and we had set up in 2020 we had 6 shows set up. We were going to play this amazing kind of semi tour through the city of Chicago, and then the first go home for 2 weeks notice came out at all our jobs, and I think the rest is kind of history at that point. All those venues started closing down and all the shows started getting canceled, and rather than sort of wrapping up and not doing anything, Matt kind of took the initiative and said, we're going to have these, I think it was every 2 weeks or once a month, we're going to have these calls and just kind of, talk to each other, see how everyone's doing and keep, ideas going. And eventually that turned into Jared and Matt doing just a tremendous amount of writing. And I was kind of getting to that earlier, but Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the majority of the songs on Everything is Strange were actually written over the course of that lockdown. As those 2 guitars, and Matt would kind of program some drums behind it, and from there we finally started practicing together once everybody was comfortable and started really fleshing those out and putting drums and bass behind it, and they started becoming their own, and we started seeing, hey, we have a kind of a set list here that we could bring back out onto the road, and started scheduling shows once more. And Jared said, well, I'm moving to Denver. So, but, I know it was something he wanted to do for so long. So, absolutely no hard feelings there, but we wanted to get this recorded in posterity because we knew there was something good here. Between all the songs that we had written, that we wanted it saved for posterity. We wanted to, get in the studio and hammer it out. And that's it's exciting to see it kind of come to fruition now. I mean, we started recording, I don't know, Ian, when did we start? September last year, August last year?
Yeah, like August.
July.
Yeah, there you
July
go.
last year.
Wow.
Is that when we started talking, Matt? Because I feel like it was just when you were about to. You're like, I think you were like, hey,
yeah,
we're gonna start getting in the studio and doing some stuff. So it might have been that long ago.
Yeah, I think we've had pushed some dates back because of COVID related things, and it just I remember I reached out like right when I kind of heard of you through Sterling, and I was just like, yeah, that'd be awesome if we could do something like that with you. And then I remember just the recording took longer, but we also took a long time to mix it too, because we weren't on this sort of like time crunch, like paying for some, we were still paying for it, but like we weren't like, like when you're in a studio with an engineer and a producer, like you're on a very short, like it's hectic kind of, and we didn't have that, and we took a lot more time with it and like really tweaking things. Like we had like multiple like Excel sheets of like like these are the changes that are happening, and these are the changes we want to see, and like little tweaks here and there, and just like went on for months, but it really paid off, like sticking to that.
Yeah, and I think that's I wish Kyle was on this call so that we can also, Kyle was a big part of that even before he was a member of the band. I guess that's how he contributed initially. He did a great job with that album, and just also his patience working with us for all of those little tweaks as well.
Yeah, I think we only changed his personality slightly with the amount of corrections that we had him go through. And it was a harrowing experience for him. I think we added a few other, darker shades under his eyes by the end of it. Like, well, could you crank that up? Like, oh, I don't know, like just a little bit.
He's got some gray hair streaks for sure.
Yeah, he definitely aged. That's for sure.
People, I mean, each one of you can answer this if you like. When, what you were saying, Matt, as far as when you're under the time constraint, sort of in a way, some people seem to do better with pressure, and some people don't. Some people, like for me, like I have my, so I'm in a band, the Spacing Effect, and Aaron, the other guy, he's the engineer. He does all the mixing and stuff, and we're kind of at our leisure, even though we try to get stuff out more often now, but that kind of like taking the moment and just working it out even if it's just the mixes or tweaking something or adding a little something. Um, it's so much it's so much more easier than like when I was in a punk band before. There was a lot of pressure when we were recording our little demo thing, and I can't do pressure. Like then I freak out because then it's like I'll mess up the singing or I'll mess up the guitar. I mess up now, but at least I'm at my leisure. Do how do you guys feel? Do you feel like more at your leisure is you're at your leisure recording? Is that easier for you to be creative and do your thing, or do you like being under pressure? It kind of force you to be that sooner. You know what I'm saying?
I think it's a little bit different for everybody in the band, which is kind of great because we all bring different strengths. I think that,
Yeah.
for this particular album, I showed up and, because I was feeling that pressure, or I was feeling a little bit of pressure, I think I recorded all 7 songs in one day.
Oh.
Whereas Matthew had a little bit of time to like breathe. I want to say AJ actually also recorded all of his parts in one day, and that allowed us to give time to Matthew to like really explore what he needed to do on his end. So I feel like we all brought kind of like a different sensibility when it came to like how we feel pressure and how we work under that pressure.
Okay. Wow. 7 in one day, dear God.
Was
Yeah,
it
I
7?
think that speaks more to how prepared Ian is, and just for me, how much I hate recording. I really can't stand it. I've never, since I've started playing music, anytime I've gone to the studio, my goal is to get out as soon as possible. And this album was no different. I just for me at least, it was more about just practicing at home in the build up and in the practices beforehand. Um, and it may be just the nature of bass itself, where there's really not a lot in the way of, you've written your part, and so much is based on that in terms of what melody is on top of it, or treble, or what's coming in, and the different vocal level patterns and layers. So you're kind of expected to do exactly that. Whatever you've been practicing, whatever you've been writing, whatever people have become to, I think the same can be said for drums, right? And I mean, you can't really go in there and switch up a fill or just decide you're going to change the rhythm. So from a rhythm section perspective, there's kind of that where I like the pressure, but I feel like it's just self-imposed. I'm just sitting there fidgety, like, am I done yet? Am I done yet? I got a 6-pack of beer waiting in the fridge. Can I just get to that now, and be done? And that's, at least that's how I felt about it.
Yeah.
And I
mean,
think
like-
us taking on that pressure allowed Jared that space to not feel pressure, because we did our part, and like now they have the time to kind of explore their space.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a whole world around. I know what you're saying, because as a guitarist like you, Matthew, like it just, when that's kind of set, the rhythm and the bass, then it's like, okay, what can I do here? I know I could make this so much more full, even little nuances and whatever it is to make this song gigantic.
I think what was really different like this time around was like the last record, we, obviously we didn't necessarily know the person that we recorded with to the level that at least like I know the person that we recorded with this time, Kyle. And I didn't really get time to like tweak, like, what amps do I want to use? Like what guitars am I going to use? Like what pedal set? Like I'm a big pedals like snob. Like I want to like be able to tweak things and get weird sounds and use those as samples in whatever we're going to do. And I didn't get to do that last record. And I knew that like that's something I really want to do this record, and that's something I feel like we're able to accomplish this time around. There were times that like Jared and I just sat and like tweak things and like loop things and just try to get weird sounds for like a few hours, and then ended up then recording that into the board, and then like just editing that and see like where that could actually fit. And so there's a song on the record called Worried Sick, and the intro of it is just a sample from that experience. And it plays for a few seconds and the drums kick in, and then AJ has this awesome like bass intro, and then the song kicks in, and it's just like really beautiful.
You actually, when you come up, so with you being as a guitarist, do you come up with the riffs first and then show them, or do they have like does AJ throw a riff at you and then you go around that?
Never. No. It's not to say that hasn't happened before, but no, Matt's the brainchild of this. It's I am often shocked at how many ideas Matt can come up with. It's just this endless. It's every single week he's got some new idea or some new song, and they're all at minimum have merit, and the majority are amazing. So it definitely starts with Matt in terms of songwriting, and then Ian and I get our hands on it, and we try to impart our own style on it. I'll let Matt speak to that. I don't know where he gets that. If he's got a muse in his back pocket or what, but it's really impressive how often he comes up with so many.
No, I mean, like Jared and I wrote, like, to their point before, like Jared and I wrote a ton, like we have a ton of ideas. There's like a Google Drive, it's like all, and it's called parts, the folder. And it's just like, we did everything in Logic Pro, and we would just like, share the project file and the time signature and then the BPM. And we're just like, there's just tons of ideas in there. And we're like, okay, what works, what doesn't? Or we're like, oh, we're really jazzed about this. Let's try to work that out. And I mean, I think overall during the course of like a year and a half, we probably did about 12 full songs. And then we'd play them, like once we started like actually transition to start practicing, we'd actually try to play those songs in the room. And some of them just didn't work. And that's totally okay. But the ones that did work some of them are on this record. There's a song called Out to Sea, which I mostly did by myself in Logic, and I actually programmed the drums, and the drums are pretty much the same as the program drums. I think like Ian just kind of dug that, and it really worked for the song. And yeah, I mean, we were just going back and forth like every day. We were like, we get off work and we were just like, shooting ideas, and we're like, okay, can you work on this? Can you send me this? And we're just like going back and forth. And yeah, I mean, there's some stuff that could maybe surface later, but I'm really proud of the stuff that came to fruition. So.
And how many songs are actually on this album?
There's 8.
8 on this one.
Actually, when we were in the studio, we got done tracking everything, and I'm like, I really wanted an introduction to the record. Like I had this idea. There was like this intro to us, one of the snippets that Jared and I had done, and the rest of the song didn't really make sense. But I really liked this like first 30 seconds of this thing, and I was like, this could be really cool if we made this the intro to the record. And so we didn't have a lot of time in the studio because I mean, I think we were like wrapping up for the day, and I was like, I need to record this like right away. I'm like, so I put like a slapback delay on an Earthquaker Devices Avalanche Run version 2, put it on slapback, tapped it in, and I put some reverb, it's a reverb delay pedal combo, and I just like tapped it in. I think the tempo was like 170, and I just played this idea and I looped it, and I was like, Jared, just do what you do. And I think he did like, I don't know, 15 minutes or something. He's like, we have a video of him saying, I was like, did I do it? or something. And then I sang a line over it. I changed what I had lyrically, and I made it to more about the pandemic and essentially things I'm going through with my family and my father, with memory loss and stuff. And it's a very short, just like 2-sentence song, and it's the intro of the record. And I think it really sets the mood for what you don't know that you would expect essentially from the record. You hear it and you're like, I don't know what this is going to be.
I like that though. So guys, if we can actually go back to the beginning. So actually, I kind of missed the part though where AJ came into the picture. As far as, was it another Craigslist thing, or was it just friends thing? He notified, or how did that come together? I didn't hear that. I'm sorry.
I think I had put a list or like a listing on a Facebook group, like a Chicagoland musicians, or I can't remember what it was, but AJ had responded to that, right? Is that right?
That's right. Yep.
So you didn't
It
have any
was
weirdos text you back or call you or anything, Matt?
I don't know.
I don't
So
think
it
so.
feels like it was so long ago, you know?
Oh,
Yeah. But I think he was like the first person that walked through the door, and the search ended there. Same thing with Jared. Jared, I think we did. I think put up a Craigslist ad, and he responded to it, and
dang.
we just got really lucky in that regard.
You know, the I've been doing emblems for a long time, but I think like the core is the three of us, and you know, I consider the band to be like in its full capacity since 2016, when it's been like the three of us. You know, we've teetered with like changing the name and stuff, and but it's just like emblems just always worked.
Where did you actually get that from?
It's the title record from Matt Ponpier. He's a kind of folk pop singer that I grew up with, listened to in college and stuff, and it's really like that one record put out in 2004. And I reached out to him. I was like, hey, like I love this record. I want to name this project that I'm doing after that. And he responded like right away. And he was like, I would be honored if you did that. And years later, we ended up playing a show with them, a college show, and then we ended up doing their 10-year anniversary of that record, opening that show in 2014 at Lincoln Hall in Chicago. And
That's crazy, dude.
and actually he just messaged me like before this call tonight, and we were just chatting on Instagram.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow,
That's the kind of person that will email like the ambassador to Myanmar, telling them that he really enjoyed his last speech, and somehow that person will reach back out to him, and they'll have this conversation. Like Matt somehow like makes these connections with people that it's fascinating. Like he'll just reach out randomly to various individuals and strike up conversations and build relationships with people. Whereas I'm the kind of person where I would never do that. I would never think to do that. And I think that's awesome that he does do that.
Is that how you? I'm sorry. How did you meet Paul again? Is that how you kind of met Paul?
Paul and I went to college together. We went to University of Wisconsin Parkside in Kenosha for a couple of years, and we were we took a music theory class and we met there, and then we ended up being roommates, and then we've just been friends since. So it's been almost 20 years or so.
So then I have to ask, because I know how Paul is, and I know you're a little more shy. Who who brought up the first conversation?
Probably Paul.
Paul.
Oh yeah, for sure. Oh no, because he's an illustrator. He likes to draw a lot, and he was at the time. You know, I wear tight pants, and I was wearing,
at the time.
men's
Show us. No, I'm sorry.
tight pants for men like weren't readily available, and so I was wearing women's pants in college, and they were like flare jeans, and he was like sketching me, and he was sketching, and he was sitting behind me, and I turn around, I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? And it was like literally a sketch of me. And then he looks up and he's like, like, and then we just like started
That's like a
talking.
whole new level of creeping. How do you even come back from that?
Yeah,
like
you're drawing. You took the time to draw somebody.
I mean,
he's
I
clearly
had
been
that.
looking at you for a while.
I had that
drawing.
drawing. I've had that drawing. I think I still have it somewhere. Like just, because we've been friends for so long. But yeah, and then we played in a band for a while, and then like throughout the years we tried to do music. He's in Milwaukee, and so it's about like an hour and a half drive. But we still hang out and stuff, and so yeah.
Have you guys thought about actually doing a show together?
I
know
yeah,
it's
we've
a
talked
bit of
about it.
distance, but
I think like him and Rob and Sterling, I believe they're coming out to our release show on Friday.
nice, cool.
Yeah, Paul came out to our last show at the Burlington in Chicago, May 28th. Was that the date? It was the first time I had seen him in a long time. It was, nothing ever. All this time passed and nothing changes, and you have that really great connection with somebody. Yeah.
Do you know he actually drew our the cover for our recent single. He drew the
Oh,
cover.
really?
Yeah, he did
Nice.
our recent single is called "I Feel You." It's a Depeche Mode cover, and he did the cover and was like, yes, cool, we got Paul involved.
Nice. Awesome.
He's great. I love his stuff. Even the stuff we didn't use, I was really like, he's got an eye. He's really got an eye
Mhm.
for art. Um, so okay, so let's go back to all three of you. I'm gonna actually individually answer this. So, what was the band or the moment you guys realized that music was the thing you wanted to do? Like, how old were you? What was it that kind of was the click for you? Goes AJ, you start.
Man, tough question.
No, it's
Um,
not.
I guess I'll go. Okay, so the memory that's most clear for me was my first concert. I was in sixth grade, and luckily I had really cool parents, and I actually went to go see Queens of the Stone Age and the Red Hot Chili Peppers at when it was called the Tweeter Center.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
and seeing Flea play
Yeah.
live, and I think it was the By the Way tour, and it was just this insane moment. I was, sixth grade, so what was 12 years old, and just thinking like, wow, like I don't know, it kind of changed me. Where I was, I think a lot of people see these incredible guitarists or drummers or things like that, and it's kind of rare to see like an insane bassist, right? And it's someone that kind of sent me down that road. Um, Between that and having other people in the crowd like pass a joint past me at 12 years old, and my stepdad next to me being like, "Yeah, no, he's fine," and then just put me past me. It's just something. Maybe there was something in the air, but no, that was definitely like the moment that just seeing just these two incredible groups touring on their at the time, even then great albums, but looking back, some of their best albums was huge for me. That definitely sent me down the path. Like I want to do that. I want to play music live. I want to play something like that.
Even just like it was bass itself. Like
Yeah,
you can play bass. Like I want to play bass, not guitar. I want to play bass. I want to be that guy.
absolutely. It's weird, right?
No, it's not weird.
I was actually after that. It was like a couple months after that. I went to a guitar shop in Elgin. That man, I can't think of the name of it. And if anybody just knows me from back then is watching it, so I know a buddy
Isn't
of mine's
that
yelled
place?
at me.
Isn't that place down the street from my house?
It might be. I don't know if it's still there. But I walked in and, I told my dad that I wanted to play bass. And I think he said at the time, he was thinking he had a guitar. He means guitar. But I walked in there and I walked up to this black P bass. And, my dad kind of looked at me and goes, that's not a guitar, right? And I said, I'm like, yeah, no, I want that. I want to learn how to play that. And the rest is history. Just kind of picked it up, and immediately I'm like, I'm gonna play like Flea. And so after failing immediately at that, I turned around and just started listening to some of the other bass players and some of the bands I liked. At the time, Blink-182, right? So I started trying to chase after Mark Hoppus and what he was doing, which was much more manageable. Not to put back Mark Hoppus, but he's
Yeah,
no
right?
Flea. So
More chords, pretty doable.
right. But yeah, that was definitely the moment. I guess if there was a singular moment I can look at, that was the one that stuck with me, and that I still look back at and go, I can't believe that was my first concert. Like that, absolutely
That's
nuts.
cool, man. That's very cool.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, what about you, Ian?
I actually started playing drums really young. I assume just like any other kid, start banging on pots and pans when you're 2, 3 years old. And I just had parents that supported it and kind of encouraged it. And so I remember taking drum lessons. I was probably about 4 years old. I was like learning how to read music at the same time I was learning how to read. It was something that I just always did. And I know it sounds cheesy, but I often tell people, I didn't choose the drums. The drums chose me. It was just something that was always there and was always a part of my life. So there was no singular moment. To me, it was like walking or like breathing or like eating. It was just always there. It was ever present.
And so
And
did
just
you just
something
pick
I
it up
always
really easy, or was it something you just kind of picked up and it was like nothing to you?
I kind of picked it up and it was like nothing to me. I remember my father taking drum lessons with me
Oh, wow. Okay.
to kind of like encourage me and to like, have
Very cool.
kind of something that we could do together. And
That's very cool.
I want to say in under a year, he quit doing the drum lessons because I had just exceeded him. I was that far ahead of him.
Screw it, let the kid do
To
it.
where he was like, all right,
Move aside, old man.
yeah, he's like, all
Totally.
right, you know, you're on your own now. Like you obviously
You've got this.
have the talent for this. And I also come from a musical family. My grandfather was a violin player, a relatively famous violin player in like Serbian music. He's in the
Wow.
Tumble Music Hall of Fame. So I guess maybe that talent or that musical ability was passed down to me
Yeah.
in some way through that as well. So just something that like I always did. There was no singular moment
Okay.
as much as it's just, you know, encompassed and made up of who I am.
Well, then what about bands though? Like, was there a particular band that kind of spoke to you though? It was like, oh man, that's somewhere where I want to go, or something like that.
Of course, any drummer is gonna, you know, usually look back to John Bonham and Led Zeppelin. Hearing Led Zeppelin, my dad listened to a lot of classic rock, so a lot of classic rock around the house, and even being, you know, very young, 6, 7 years old, and hearing John Bonham play, and it was like, oh, that's, you know, that's what I want to do. So I would have to say that, you know, even though I don't listen to them that much anymore, they definitely were a huge influence. John Bonham in particular was a huge influence on like my wanting to play the drums and kind of like even some of my style for the drums.
All right. Well, what about you, Matt?
Um, mine's not a great story. You know, I remember being in like northern Wisconsin in like '95, and at the time I was listening to Collective Soul. And I remember I like really loved the bass tone on one of the records, and I wanted to play bass. And my aunt took, she was just like, "Oh, okay." And she didn't know what any of the instruments were. And she's like, "I'm gonna get him a guitar." And then she got me a guitar for some reason, and then I just started playing guitar. But all like growing up, I like somehow like I grew up like listening to like ska, and then specifically like two wave and like third wave, and then like Christian ska I grew up on.
Yeah.
So like one of my first concerts ever was like Five Iron Frenzy in 1998,
There you go.
and I just love the sound and like the energy behind all that. And then like as I like went through like high school and stuff, I really, it wasn't until like I found like Bright Eyes until like 1998 2000, I was like I really like that kind of vocal delivery.
Yeah.
And I just kind of gravitated towards that. I played in like an acoustic band, and then I played in a punk rock band, and played shows in high school. And yeah, I was just like, you know, like, my parents eventually like got me like a Fender Squire, I think, as most starting guitars do. And I don't know, I took lessons for a while, but the lessons never really did anything for me. Like I always play by ear, and even to this day, like I don't read music. And you know, I try to learn scales like on my, if I have like downtime, but like AJ or someone be like, "What key is that?" And they don't know like not to ask me anymore. Like, you know, they're like, he's like, "Give me an A, I'll tune to it, and then I'll just like play around whatever you're playing." But like I don't know, I just whatever sounds good. But I'm always told that I have interesting chord structures, and I'm just like, I don't know, that's what feels good, you know.
I love that your aunt was just like, "Oh, I'm just gonna buy him a guitar."
I was gonna say, I think he's like one of the few would-be bassists that fell into guitar. It's usually the other way around. This is like the first time I'm hearing this.
There you go.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean, I didn't know about Ian's dad about playing drums with him.
Yeah.
That's the first I've heard of that.
That's
Yeah.
so cool though. Like you don't hear a lot of dads just joining to do something with their kid a lot, especially doing drums together. I mean, the loudest instrument.
Yeah.
Let's annoy the hell out of everybody.
My parents, looking back on it, the patience that they had to, you know, I had a full drum set in the house, and
Holy crap, really?
I was really young, and I would go to town, and you know, my dad would work double shifts or he'd work a midnight shift, but you know, when it was my time to practice, like they they worked around me, and they really encouraged it, supported it, and like, I mean, super grateful. Looking back on it, super grateful for all that they did to like make that happen for me.
That's very cool. I do have another question though, in regards to you guys being in other bands before this band. Like, what was there any that were kind of like maybe we've heard of, anything like that along those lines?
So I was, I guess, how far back do you want to go? But
I don't
okay, so
care.
like the first band I recorded an album with was a band called Laconia. When I was 15, I think 16 is when we recorded the album. And you can probably still find that music out there. It's under Laconia IL for Illinois, because there was another band called Laconia in, I want to say, like in Wales.
Oh,
And
geez,
so we had
okay.
to, we were so upset. At first we were called The Fallen, and we were outside sneaking cigarettes because we were so cool. And we were trying to figure out what another band name could be, since there were a million The Fallens. And
Yeah, right.
our bassist, Adam, lived on a street called Laconia. And we said, it's such a weird thing. Nobody could possibly have a band called Laconia. And we tried to register it on Pure Volume. Was that the name of the site at the time?
That sounds like
And they said rejected, band already with that name. And I think we almost broke his computer desk. Like, we were so pissed off. But decided to keep going with that. No, but after that, I was for a long time in a cover band, which at the time was called Retroplasma, that subsequently became Party Punch. But that was a cover band, and it was much different than being in an original band. We would play for 3 hours and have like 30 to 40 song set lists.
holy crap.
But played bass in that and sang and had backup vocals in that one. But that was just exhausting. You'd get off, you'd start, and then you'd play for 3 hours. You maybe have a 10-minute break in between, then you get off stage. It's 1:30 in the morning. Everybody around you is completely wasted, but you're stone cold sober and tired. And just, it wasn't, doing that a couple times is just like, all right, I want to, not that wasn't incredibly fun, but definitely wanted to do something more creative. And it was after that I saw Matt's Tinder page or Facebook, whatever it was, and joined up with those guys.
At the time, it was probably both.
Yes,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Don't make me spit. I want to spit on my screen. And Ian, were you in any other like bands beforehand?
Yeah, lots of bands, several bands.
Any of note?
Nobody of particular note. A lot of just smaller local Chicago acts.
Yeah.
Yeah, but hopefully this is the last band. I'm praying. Matthew and we've been together now 6 or 7 years, and I think this is one of the longest that I've ever done a band. Usually bands, you have the honeymoon phase for the first year and a half, maybe even 2 years. But after that 2-year mark hits, you want to kill each other.
Yeah, we're way past that, Ian. Don't worry. We're already in the I'm giving you a little bit of bleach in your morning cereal every morning phase. So
Yeah,
that's where we're at.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is like one of the longest, and I really enjoy what we do, and really kind of like believe in what we do here, the music that we're making. So I'm hoping it's the last one.
Very cool.
Matt probably wants to kick me out every practice. But...
You haven't had any big blow-ups or anything, have you?
Surprisingly not.
No, that's good.
No, I mean, nothing that we can actually remember, I guess. But
no,
that's good. Well, okay. Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead, AJ.
No, I was just gonna. I think like in other projects, there's always been, especially when you get into like you're going back in time to your teenage years, where like everything was at the time so dramatic and so low stakes, and like just
yes,
we're doing this, let's drop out of high school and make this happen, like just like and just nothing like that here. Everything's always been, it was with Emblems very, very casual. I think like I can't think of like a major blow up or anything like that, or at least nothing that a beer couldn't cure. So
Go to straight devices. Yep.
yeah, like nothing like that. I mean, usually the guy saying that's the guy that everybody's pissed off at. So Ian, Matt, if you want to like jump in and just say, yeah, no, this asshole's been the bane of our existence for a while, then yeah, that'd probably make a lot of sense.
No, but I mean, like between the three of us, I don't think so. Like
I think that like there are times that we're all passionate about what we do, and we're passionate about like what we're putting out there. And there's times where we're kind of like we get heated, but nothing that I think is like unreasonable.
Well, we all come from different backgrounds musically, which is really nice because we think about every part differently. And then we usually have to like, stop what we're doing and like talk it out before we like realize what the other person is seeing. And then like once we see it collectively, then we're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Let's try that.
Yeah. You guys just talking to you right, meeting you guys today, you seem like there is just a genuine like collective like easiness to you. I don't sense like any kind of like egotistical, hot-headedness, anything like that with you guys at all. And you got drunkard, but I'm sure he seems pretty happy when he's drunk.
Absolutely. And the only reason we haven't gotten to that point yet is because I haven't had an opportunity to elaborate on my greatness, Scotty. I gotta, that might take an entire other podcast, and I'm definitely willing to get into the weeds
Part
with
2.
you about how I carry this entire show. And really is just it's AJ and the Emblems, really.
Yeah. There you go.
That's it, man.
But no, just like a point that Matt brought up in terms of like having so many different styles. And I think this goes back to like the beginning of the beginning of our talk here. What is our sound? It's always so impossible to try and nail it down, because even we joke all the time about, having these dedicated passions to these bands and these sounds and these different eras of music, and they're not alike at all in terms of, the three of us and what we listen to. There's some overlap here or there. But like one of my favorite things to do is to start playing a Red Hot Chili Peppers song just to piss Ian off, because I know it's just like one of his least favorite things to hear. But that
thanks a lot for reminding me, AJ.
Well, but it's that weirdness, for whatever reason, that it works and these style of songs come out of it. So couldn't help but just speak to that, Matt, a little bit, because Scotty, if you come up with like something else besides emo the fray, I definitely would encourage any ideas, send it to us so we can update our SoundCloud and stuff, because I think we just have on there like Chicago rock band, and that's about it.
I'll send you the record once we're done, and if you want to take a listen, they'll get back to us.
Yeah, see if it holds up to the to the fray emo.
I hope it doesn't.
Well, and I think that like the great thing about this album, and the great thing that I like about this band is, and I know every band says this, right? But like we're trying not to repeat ourselves here. And I think even from song to song, we try not to repeat ourselves. Sometimes we do, but with this album in particular, like we're really, it's I think a departure from hide and seek. It's a different sound, and I think we appreciate that, and that's something that like we've all agreed upon in the band is we don't want to just kind of like keep on putting out the same music. We want to evolve, and we want to like try new things, be daring, take a little bit of risks here. So I think if you were to listen to the new album compared to the last album, you would hear a departure from that sound.
Well, I was going to ask you
I would like to think.
Well, I would say even with your two most recent singles, Virgo and Animals, to me, those seem different than Hide and Seek and by themselves. So, to have a full album, a little different than that, something to really look forward to. Oops, sorry.
Yeah, those two songs like alone like are so drastically different, like one is almost kind of like a pop song, and then all of a sudden you have this like weird, like if you listen to Animals, the only thing that repeats in that song is the chorus. And then every part like in between is just different and it never repeats again. And that was actually the first song we wrote with Jared. during the pandemic. But the rest of the record like sounds nothing like that. Every
Oh,
song is
really?
different, and we didn't, it wasn't intended to do that when we were like setting out to record these songs. Like once we were like laying out the track list, we're like, oh, every song is different. But I think, going back to what I said before, like that intro that we did, I think that kind of like set the precedent for like what that would look like.
Okay. So with the new album coming out and stuff, do you guys have any dates set for playing live?
Yep. So we have a release show this Friday at Reggie's in Chicago. It is with Figers and Boundary Waters. So after that, we will play August 26th at Livewire Lounge with this band called Sons of Abbey. And then we have October 21st in Chicago with an old like 90s band called Moving Targets. We'll be opening for them. One of their booking agents like reached out to us. But in that time being, we're gonna try to get a show in with Jared. Jared lives in Denver now, and he's he wants to fly out and do a show with us, and we want to make that happen. So that's kind of where we're at. We'll just kind of see like what comes up.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Now, do you have any desire to move around a little and like tour around a little bit, like small touring, or just cool with like just a couple of gigs here and there?
I think if the opportunity presented itself, like, I think we'd be down to like, do like some surrounding like Michigan or like Wisconsin stuff, not horribly far, but stuff where we have like friends, and we don't necessarily want to play for no one, as nobody does, but that could be cool.
Well, I mean, with this, I'm sure you got some. I think I saw a couple of merch things too for you guys. You're gonna take that with you on your shows. Do you guys still have a lot of physical stuff to sell while you're out there?
Yeah, we got some t-shirt designs still available. We have this actually a t-shirt design that Paul from Sterling designed. It's this tarot card that he made, and it says like emblems, and it has this like rabbit tarot card, and it says like Chicago, Illinois at the bottom. It's really cool in Paul fashion. And then we also have a design that was designed, I've had it for years, probably a decade, and it was designed by the original guitarist from Poison the Well. And it's
Really?
a
Oh my gosh.
really super random. And it's
Scotty, this is what we're talking about, where Matt has connections, and you're just like, say that
Wow, I haven't
again.
heard Poison the Well in forever. So
Yeah.
Right.
wow, that came out of nowhere. No,
I'll send you the
wow.
design, yeah. And it's these like birds with this like sun, and it says like emblems on it. So we still have shirts of those.
Very cool.
And then we have that limited design shirt that Sell the Heart Records has on their site, and you can only get it from them. And then we have cassettes available for the new record through Outcast Tape Infirmary out of Madison.
Well, guys, thank you very much for taking the time. I know it's late where you're at, but I appreciate your time. I'm glad we finally did this, Matthew. So thank you again. You guys were all a delight. Thank you very much for joining on.
Cool.
Appreciate it,
Thanks,
Scotty.
Scotty.
Thank you.
All right,
you.
guys. All right, have a good night. I'll talk to you later.
You too.
Good
All
night.
right, bye-bye.
Bye.